Okay, for 4D, we're using the last formula on your formula sheet, which is your PMT is equal to your P times your APR over N all over 1 minus 1 plus APR over N to the negative N times Y. So notice it's almost the backwards of what the savings plan is, upside down, and then it's 1 minus instead of this minus 1, and then negative NY. So make sure you don't get this mixed up with the savings plan. Even though they both use a PMT, this is only for loans and not for savings. Because remember, in savings, you are getting the interest. So the interest is a benefit to you. But in loans, you're paying interest, and so it goes against, it adds to what you're paying. So make sure you don't get those mixed up. This is just for loans. Now, a good thing about loans is that we're never having to go backwards like we did for savings. You're never going to be given a payment and you have to find the principal. So that's a good thing. But there's a lot, there's different nuances of a loan that we'll talk about here in this section. So for number 1, consider a student loan of $22,500 at a fixed APR of 9% for 25 years. Calculate the monthly payment and round to the nearest cent. Okay, so we know it's a loan, so we're going to have to use this formula. So if we write down what all of our variables are, N and Y. So our P, our principal, is the amount we are loaning. So we're loaning $22,500. We have an APR of 9%, so 0.09. It says calculate the monthly payment. So because we're making monthly payments, our N is going to be 12. And years, we're making this for 25 years. So my payment is going to be a principal, so 22,500 times my APR divided by N all over 1 minus 1 plus my APR over N to the negative N times Y. Okay, so putting this in the calculator, I have 22,500 parenthesis 0.09 divided by 12 parenthesis, and that's the top, so I do divided to get to the bottom, and then parenthesis 1 minus parenthesis 1 plus 0.09 divided by 12 parenthesis caret parenthesis. So make sure here you do the minus sign and not, or you do the negative sign instead of the minus sign. So we're going to use this button down here. If you try to use this one, you're going to get a syntax error and it's not going to give you the answer. So make sure you press this right button. So it's a negative 12 times 25, parenthesis, parenthesis. So we have this parenthesis and this big one. I enter, and we get 188.819, but they want to round to the nearest cent. So our monthly payment is going to be $188.82 for this loan. So part B, determine the total amount paid over the term of the loan, round to the nearest cent. So they want the total amount paid. So this is similar to like the total amount of deposits that we would put in a savings plan. So we're going to take the amount that we pay per month, so 188.82, and we're going to multiply that by the number of times per year. So in this case it's 12, and the number of years are 25. So we have our payment times our N times our Y. So we have 188.82 times 12 times 25. In my math lab, I think they take this rounded one, so I don't think you have to keep this unrounded one. So let's take the 188.82 times 12 times 25 to get 566.46. And that is even because of this 25 here, or the 12 times 25. Okay, so 56,646. So we took the loan out of 22,500, but we ended up paying 56,000 back. Okay, of the total amount paid, what percentage is paid towards the principal and what percentage is paid for interest? Now, this is the same steps again as we did for our savings plan, but this time what we paid is going to be more than what we started with, whereas the other one, it was backwards. So we need the percent that is interest, and we need the percent that is your principal. So note they say of the total amount paid, which means the total, the whole, is going to be the total amount paid, which is this 56,646. So here, especially since they want both of them, I'm going to go ahead and do the easier one first. So I want to take the amount that is principal. So the of is the 56,646. The is the principal, and my principal is 22,500. So I do 22,500 divided by 56646. You get 0.3972. They want it rounded to the nearest tenth, but after the you change it to a percent. So this would be 39.72%, rounded to the nearest tenth would be 39.7. So the percent that's paid, the percent of the total amount paid that is your principal is 39.7%. The interest, if you want to do this separate, you would just find the amount of interest. So you take the total amount paid and subtract off your principal. So 56,646 minus the 22,500. So this was the original loan, and then this is everything you paid with the extra. So you would subtract that and then divide by 56.646. Or since we already know the principal is 39.7, we can do 100 minus 39.7. And we would get 60.3%. Okay, so now you do number 2. So number 2, we have on January 1st, you have a balance of $5,500 on a credit card whose APR is 18%, which you want to pay off in 1 year. Assume you make no additional charges to the card after January 1st. So what essentially you're doing is you're creating this what's the word? An installment loan. That's what it is. So you're creating your own installment loan so you can pay the same amount for the entire year and pay that off. Now, normally your credit card has a minimum monthly payment, but that's not going to let you pay it off very quickly. The one thing I do need to caution you about is for credit cards, your percentage rate is going to be fairly high. So note that so far all of our APRs have been just like the less than 10. But here, the APR is going to be 18%, so it's 0.18, not 0.018. Okay, so you guys can do the rest of that. Now we're going to skip 3. I decided I didn't like that question, so I just took it out of the homework, and so we're not going to talk about that. Okay, question 4. You need a loan of $135,000 to buy a home and have 2 choices for mortgages. Choice 1, a 15-year fixed rate at 4% with closing costs of $2,400 and no points. And choice 2, a 15-year fixed rate at 3.5% with closing costs of $2,400 and 3 points. To calculate your monthly payment and total closing costs for choice 1. I do want to make a note here that it's talking about a fixed rate. In the lecture video, I mentioned there's a difference between fixed rate and adjustable rate. That may come up later. It's not a lot, but just if you don't remember what that is, you may want to go back and look at your notes for that. For here, we're looking at fixed rate. So for part A, calculate your monthly payment and total closing costs for choice 1. Okay, we'll talk about closing costs for a minute, but looking at a monthly payment, our principal is what we're taking a loan for, so that's $135,000. My APR for this loan is 4%, so 0.04. My N, I'm making a monthly payment, so it's going to be 12, and I'm doing this for 15 years. So my payment is going to be $135,000 times 0.04 divided by 12. all over 1 minus 1 plus 0.04 divided by 12 raised to the negative 12 times 15. 535,000 times 0.04 divided by 12 divided by 1 minus 1 plus 0.04 divided by 12 raised to the negative 12 times 15. We get 998.58 rounded to the nearest cent. Okay, so a monthly payment is $998.58. The closing cost. Closing cost, you have a set amount, and then points would be a percentage of your loan amount. So in this case, there are no points. So all we have is a $2,400 flat fee. Okay, for choice 2, this time the principal is the same. We're still looking at $135,000. My APR for choice 2 is 3.5%, so 0.035. My N, I'm still looking at monthly payments, so that's 12. In years, we're still looking at 15 years. So the only thing that changed here is the APR. Now with a lower APR, think for a second, should you expect a higher payment or a lower payment? In this case, you would expect a lower payment because it's not as much interest. So it's going to be the same thing, but this time instead of 8.4, the 0.035 divided by 12. 1 minus 1 plus 0.035 divided by 12 raised to negative 12 times 15. So here, instead of retyping this whole thing, what I'm going to do is I push the up arrow to get back to what I wrote before. And because now I have two things here, I'm going to use above the delete is INS, that stands for insert. I'm going to use second and that button, and that allows me to insert an extra character here. So I'm going to type in a 3. And then you could go further more, but I only need to put in 1, so 0.035. Divided by 12, and 1 minus 1 plus, and I have to do this again. So I'm going to do second insert and put in a 3, and then change the 4 to a 5. Divide by 12, negative 12 times 15, and hit enter. So I have 965.09. So $33 cheaper per month. Closing costs on this one, though, does have points. So it's going to be the $2,400 flat fee, but then it's 3 points. So that means it's 3% of my loan amount, which is $135,000. So remember, we have a percent of something. We do 0.03 times $135,000. So we get 40.50. So we're going to add these two together to get 64.50 for closing costs. So part C, which is a better choice? MyMathLab, you're going to have multiple choice here. But if we're comparing them, it really depends on which is more important to you. So closing costs are paid up front. And so if you don't have the $64.50 to pay right away, but you can afford the $2,400, that would mean that choice 1 would be better, right? So choice 1 is better for a lower closing cost. But if you can afford the higher closing costs, this one has a lower payment. So choice 2 might be better because it has a lower payment. Okay. Part 5, we're going to do partly you, partly me. So suppose you take out a 50-year, $175,000 mortgage with an APR of 6%. You make payments for 2 years, which is 24 monthly payments, and then consider refinancing the original loan. The new loan would have a term of 20 years, have an APR of 5.2%, and be in the amount of the unpaid balance on the original loan. That is, the amount you borrow on the new loan would be used to pay off the balance on the original loan. The administrative cost of taking out the second loan would be $2,000. So, what are the monthly payments on the original loan? Round to the nearest cent. So, I'm going to let you do the work on that one, but I will tell you the answer to that. Which I haven't actually done in advance. Okay, so that would give you $921.21 for the payment. Okay, so part B, a short calculation shows unpaid balance on the original loan after 2 years is $173,824.83. Now, you're never going to be asked to find that number, okay? This is just, they will give that to you. That becomes the amount of the second loan. So this is your new principal. So what would the monthly payments be on the second loan? So using this new principal and the information up here for the second loan, work out what the monthly payment would be on that one. And then again, you can show me work for that. That will get you $1,166.46. Okay, for part C, what would be the total amount you would pay if you continued with the original 50-year loan without refinancing? So here we're just ignoring the second loan altogether. We're just going back to the original one, in which we're paying $921.21 every month. So to get the total amount we would pay, we could have $921.21, and we're doing that 12 months a year, and we're doing that for 50 years. So you have $921.21 times 12 times 50 gives us $552,726. Sorry, kind of a weird 5 there. So $552,726. So you take out $175,000 loan, but you'd end up paying back $552,000, over $500,000. So what would be the total amount you would pay with the refinancing? So now we have actually 3 things we have to worry about. So we had the original loan for 2 years. This is, you make payments for 2 years, or 24 monthly payments. So with the first loan, we have already paid something. So we paid $921.21 12 times a year for 2 years, so 24 months. 12 times 2 is 24. And we end up getting $22,109.04. So that's how much we paid on the original loan. And then we have our second loan, and we're paying $1,166.46 each month, 12 times a year, and this is for 20 years. So that is $279,950 and 40 cents. Okay, well, we can't just add these two together, because anytime you refinance and take out a new loan, there's always a fee that goes with it. So here we see the administrative cost of taking out the second loan would be $2,000. So we do have to pay that $2,000 as well. So then we can add all 3 of these numbers together to get $304,059.44. So the total amount we pay here is $304,059.44. So the question is, would you choose to refinance? Again, my math lab will give you a multiple choice here. But, so again, it kind of depends on your situation. So if you stick with the original loan, you pay $552,000. If you refinance, you only pay $304,000. That's $250,000 cheaper. But you have a higher payment. So this is like a qualified yes if you can afford the higher payments. So anytime you can get your APR down, anytime you get the length of your term or the length of the loan down, both of those will help decrease this total amount, but they will likely increase your monthly payment. So if you can afford it, go ahead and do that because it'll save you more money in the long run. Okay, number 6. Suppose you have the following 3 student loans. $10,000 with an APR of 7.5% for 17 years, $17,000 with an APR of 8% for 22 years, and $14,500 with an APR of 9% for 12 years. Part A, calculate the monthly payment for each loan individually. Round each to the nearest cent. So we have, we'll call this number 1. The 10,000, 12,000, or 17,000 we'll call number 2, and the 14,500 we'll call number 3. So for 1, our principal is 10,000. My APR is 0.075. For each of these, we're doing monthly payments, and this one is for 17 years. So I'll let you do the work on that, but you should get 86, 87, round to the nearest cent. Okay, for the second one, my principal is 17,000. My APR is 0.08. My N is still 12. My Y for this one is 22. Payment on that one is 137.05. And for the third one, my principal is 14,500. My APR is 0.09. My N is 12, and my years is also 12. Payment on this loan will be 165.01. Okay, so 3 individual student loans. Those are the payments on all of those. And then, of course, you want to know the total payment for when you're paying on all 3 of them, you'd have to add them up. Part B, calculate the total payments during the life of all 3 loans. So for the entire 3 thing. So in this case, we can't just add them together and multiply by 12, multiply by the number of years, because they all have different years, which means we're going to have to figure out each of them separately. So for the first one, we're doing 86, 87, 12 months a year, and doing that for 17 years. For the second one, we have 137.05 times 12 times 22 years. For the third one, we're doing 165.01 times 12 for 12 years. So putting these in the calculator, we get 17.7 to 1.48, so 17,000 for 137.05. We get 36,181.20 cents. And here we get 23,761.44. Okay, so now we can add these 3 together. Get 77,664.12. So $77,664.12 to pay off all 3 of these student loans. So now let's consider that we have a bank that is going to offer to consolidate the 3 loans into a single loan. So instead of taking these 3 individual loans, we're only going to take out 1 loan with an APR of 8% and a loan term of 22 years. What will be the monthly payments in that case, and what will the total payments be over the 22 years? So instead of taking 3 loans separately, we're going to take 1 loan for the same amount. So our principal is going to be the sum of our 3 individual loans. So we have 10,000 there, and then we have 17,000 and 14,500. So instead of taking 3 separate ones, we're going to take 1 for the total amount, which is 41,500. So our principal is 41,500. Our APR for this loan is 0.08. We're making monthly payments still, and this time the years are 22. So putting all that in the calculator, we get a payment of $334.56. So this will be our monthly payment. So our total that will pay for the entire 22 years will be the $334.56 times 12 times a year times 22 years. Get $88,323.84. So it's not asking you this, but would you consolidate? So the question, so if we were to add these three up, the 86.87 plus 137.05 plus 165.01. So adding those together, we would, at least for the first 12 years, we would be paying $388.93. After that, it gets cheaper because one of the loans will be paid off. But if you can't afford the $388, but you can afford this $334.56, and it's $50 cheaper every month. So in that case, you would refinance. But if you can't afford that extra $50, it would be better to keep them separate, because consolidating, you'd end up paying an extra almost $11,000 more. Okay, so number 7 is the same kind of problem, so you can do that one, and that is it for 4D.